Hi everyone, I am Malay Krishna, Director of Product Management at Vyapar. I joined Vyapar 6 years ago as the very first product manager, and over the years I've gone on to lead the entire product management team. Today, I also oversee all our AI initiatives, and we are building products that are used by over 2 million people. Now, over these 6 years, I've interviewed more than 200 people for various product roles, right from product interns and APMs all the way to lead product managers and so on. And through all those interviews, I've started to see patterns. I've started to notice what actually gets someone shortlisted, what differentiates those who get offers, and what hiring managers like me really look for when we are making decisions. In addition to my role at Vyapar, I also teach aspiring product managers on weekends. Over the last few years, I've helped hundreds and thousands of professionals successfully, and they have actually transitioned into product management using my help. I do a lot of mock interviews with them, and because they come back and share what kind of experiences, what kind of questions they were asked in these rounds, and talk about how their interviews went, I get a very clear picture of what's actually working in the real world. So, in this video, I'm going to share all of that with you from a hiring manager's lens. We'll talk about how you can make sure your resume gets shortlisted, how to make the most of the interviews that you get, and what are the small changes, the small things that you can do on top of this to make yourself stand out from the crowd. When I interview PM candidates, I'm always trying to answer a few core questions in my head. Will this person be able to deliver independently? Can they navigate ambiguity, trade offs, and stakeholder demands? Do they think in systems and not just features? And above all, will they grow, learn, and scale with time? Across junior to senior levels, these are the common skills that most hiring managers also evaluate. Of course, the weight of each skill depends on the role, growth PM, AI PM, tech PM, etc. But the list below captures what often separates from the good to the great. Here are 7 key skills I look for and have seen repeatedly across several companies, along with how they tend to show up in a strong candidate's answers or interviews. Number 1, structured thinking and problem decomposition. Real product problems are messy and ambiguous. The difference is how you break them into solvable parts. How strong candidates show it? They actually begin by stating assumptions and boundaries even before they've started diving in. They map the problem into sub areas, for example, user segments, technical constraints, some specific metrics, and so on, and walk the interviewer through each branch logically. They continuously keep checking back to the core objective to avoid drifting. Example, in one of the interviews I was taking, I asked a candidate rather, how will you improve the onboarding for our product? Instead of jumping into the features and suggestions and solutions, they actually paused, clarified which type of users are you looking for, what is your success metrics, and looked at the percentage of users who would complete setup. Then the candidate went on and explored use cases, explored the root causes of why the onboarding is poor right now. This structure actually gave me a lot of confidence that the candidate can lead ambiguous projects in the future. Second key skill is metrics and business acumen. Features without impact are just noise. Hiring managers want PMs who tie work to outcomes. Strong candidates, they name metrics, not just vague buzzwords, for example, retention, ARPU, LTV, etc., but they reason about trade offs as well. A feature may engage and increase engagement, but what about the cost of the server overhead, and is it worth it? Great candidates consider impact on every investment they make in metrics. If I spend 2 weeks, I'd rather tackle problem X, which moves the needle more, versus something else. In another growth PM interview, someone proposed adding a referral feature, but they didn't stop there. They immediately simulated the math. If I assume a conversion of 5% and the average value that a user is going to give me is rupees X. We need Y referrals to break even. Is that realistic given our base? That is grounded in reality and gives a hiring manager immense confidence in the PM's ability on metrics. The third key skill is execution and prioritization discipline. Many people ideate well and very few of them deliver. Execution is the core of product leadership. How strong candidates show it is that they bring big deliverables and break them into small milestones or MVPs. They show awareness of risks and plan mitigations, example, fallback paths and so on and so forth. When there is a constraint in front of them, they state that they will deprioritize something and tell you why. Example, one candidate I was interviewing described launching a new dashboard feature. But they did not stop at proposing the feature. They actually went ahead and defined a V1 with minimal metrics, skipped the non-critical visual polish, and saved the enhancements and good to haves for later. This practicality resonated with me. Number 4 is domain and technical fluency. For technical or AI PM roles, you need to hold your own with engineers and data folks. Even for less technical roles, you need to understand trade-offs. Strong candidates ask questions around data pipelines, latency, scaling, model inference costs, and integration complexities. They also explain trade-offs like what we could do in a full fine-tuned model, but that's expensive. So why not just start with prompt engineering or RAG right now? This surface constraints very early. If we don't have real-time data, we'll rely on periodic syncs, which might be a problem. In an AI PM round, which was actually the final round for a candidate, I asked the candidate to pick between two model architectures. They compared input context window, memory, compute cost, and maintenance burden, and not just stopped at accuracy. This level of nuance got them selected and gave me the confidence that they would do extremely well with engineers. The fifth key skill is communication and stakeholder empathy. PMs need to speak to every part of the organization. The clarity with which you articulate trade-offs, vision, and status is essential. Great candidates pause before speaking, take you through their assumptions, and keep a narrative arc, which is a story. They translate technical outcomes into actual business impact in very simple language. They respond gracefully when challenged or pushed, but don't get defensive about their decisions and explain them. This reminds me, in a behavioral round, I once asked someone why a stakeholder disagreed with a roadmap. Remember, I asked why. They did not give me generic answers and they did not brush it off. The candidate actually acknowledged the concern that a stakeholder had and recapped the stakeholder's logic in their experience. And then finally found alignment on something that they were proposing. This is a great skill to have. This is a rare emotional maturity to have. And that is why in today's world, this is super important. Hiring managers, especially in AI, want candidates who are aware of bias, fairness, responsible decision making, and so on and so forth. And great candidates actually proactively name failure modes, such as the model failing or minority data coming in or guardrails that they would want to set, so that they are able to set up fallback paths, human reviews, and continuous monitoring. These people show humility, which means that they are always open to testing, monitoring, and iterating because they don't expect perfection at launch. And that is why this is a great skill to have. I once asked someone about how they would recommend content to Netflix. They ended up pausing and understanding the data and the underrepresented groups that they had. Then they proposed evaluation metrics where they covered all of these metrics that we just discussed in their pitch. Finally, the seventh key skill: curiosity, ownership, and growth mindset. The best PMs don't stand still. In product, things change daily, especially in AI. Hiring managers want people who will grow with the role and evolve their thinking. Great candidates actually bring up side projects, their latest readings and experimentations and reflections. They talk about their past failures and how they iterated rather than just brushing them under the carpet. They ask smart meta questions. For example, how do you see this product evolving in 2 years? I remember I once interviewed someone who had quit a very stable job to build a small AI agent on the side. They were very open and shared how they iterated on the prompts, user feedback, and architecture. It was a very gritty experience for me to know someone like this, and this kind of curiosity gives other hiring managers a great amount of confidence. Now, let's understand the nuance of different PM roles. The first is growth PMs who rely heavily on metrics, experimentation, funnels, virality loops, retention, A B tests, and so on and so forth. Their domain fluency is less about machine learning and AI and more about analytics, segmentation, and user behavior. AI or tech PMs carry much more deeper technical judgment. They understand models, data pipelines, evaluation frameworks, inference cost, latency, fallback systems, and how AI is going to intersect with the UX that the user will see. Now, what I personally look for, and what is true for the industry as well, is that most folks actually value ownership under ambiguity. You want people who lean in when things are messy, who want to own the outcome end to end, and are open to course correcting when they are wrong. This is a signal that I believe matters more than a perfect resume or a perfect transcript. Broadly across companies, I see structured thinking plus matrix plus execution discipline plus clear communication are almost universal filters. The domain fluency bar shifts with the role, but the mental architecture, how you think through problems, how you communicate, how you evaluate trade offs, how you deliver under uncertainty is a non negotiable. If you can demonstrate strong signals in 3 to 4 of these skills, rather than trying to be picture perfect everywhere, you'll already be light years ahead of many candidates. Now let's talk about the resume stage. This is the first stage of getting a shortlist, the most underestimated part of your job hunt and essentially the most important as well. This is the point where most talented people get filtered out. And this is not because they're not capable. This is because they don't communicate their story in a way hiring managers actually read. Hiring managers actually spend 6 seconds on a resume before they decide to move on to the next one. 6 seconds is all you have to tell your story, your value, and your potential fit for the role. Let's me break down in terms of what actually happens in those 6 seconds. I actually sat down and evaluated myself on how do you spend those 6 seconds. When I look at a resume, my brain automatically goes through 4 filters: clarity, impact, trajectory, and relevance. And this is true for most hiring managers too. Let's first look at clarity. Within the first couple of seconds, I should understand what you do and what space you play in. If I have to search for your role or can't tell whether you're a product person, designer, analyst, you've already lost the hiring manager's attention. The best resumes are self-explanatory. Your title, your company, and your one-line summary should make it immediately obvious for me to know where you are coming from. Second filter is impact. Responsibilities are everywhere. Everyone writes their designations in the best way possible. Outcomes are rare. Hiring managers look for evidence of how your work has moved a metric, solved a problem, or changed the trajectory of a business. It's not about how many projects you ran. It's actually about what changed because of you. The third is the trajectory. A great resume reads like a story. It shows growth in your ownership, in the complexity of the projects that you've done, in your scope, and so on. If hiring managers can see a clear line from executing features to shaping strategy, they already know you are learning fast. Every hiring manager wants this. They want someone who is stretching beyond their current box. And finally, relevance. If you've done brilliant work, does it connect to what the company needs right now? It's an AI PM role, and I don't see any signals of AI fluency. No mention of experiments, data, tools, anything. It becomes really hard to justify spending time on your resume. You don't have to be an AI engineer, but you do need to show curiosity and awareness in the context. So in those seconds, I'm essentially asking, can I understand you quickly, believe your results, see your natural growth, and imagine you solving the problems that exist in my product. If the answer is yes to even 3 out of these 4, you're shortlisted. Now let's talk about the do's and don'ts. First, the do's. What works and based on what I have seen. I've seen consistently across candidates who get callbacks. The first is that clarity always beats creativity. If you use simple, direct language, your role, your product area, and the scale of your impact should jump off the page. They also show outcomes and not just activity. They don't describe the task that they did, they actually describe the metric that they moved. What changed in the business because of them? What did users experience differently because of their work? Third, they use evidence. Even approximate metrics work. Saying increased retention is one thing, but giving a clear picture of how much, in what time, and what were the features that led to it goes a long way in getting a shortlist. And finally, these people stop the scroll. They highlight their proof of work, they highlight their curiosity, especially in emerging fields like AI, to showcase that they are learning. They mention interesting projects, experiments, and frameworks that they have explored. Hiring managers value people who've taken initiatives, even if it is at a small scale. The fifth do is to keep it readable. Remember, this isn't a brochure document, this is a 6-second scan document. White space, clean formatting, short bullet points, all that it makes it easy for the eye to read it. Do not go for fancy CV templates. Now let's talk about the do. What turns off hiring managers immediately? The first, copy pasting your job description. Saying you are responsible for managing cross-functional teams is so damn generic, it doesn't tell me anything new. Everyone does that. Tell me what you changed while doing it. Second, don't overcomplicate the format. Skip the fancy visuals, icons, photos, etc. People care about the content and not the color. Keep it simple and professional. And three, stretching the truth. Especially with experience, don't fake depth. If you've used ChatGPT or built a small prototype, say that. It shows curiosity. But if you end up claiming model expertise when you don't have it, it is an instant credibility drop. Number 4 of the don'ts is wasting space on fillers. Remove team words like team player, go getter, all of those. No one wants to see that. We want to see evidence of those traits, not read them as adjectives. So give examples of when you've done them. The fifth don't, and the biggest one, is sending the same resume to every company. Hiring managers and product leaders know when you've done your homework. A tailored resume that mirrors the company's priorities always stands out. The hiring manager's lens when I'm shortlisting is not just looking for the best resume. They're actually looking for the clearest signal for readiness. That readiness shows up through your resume and your storytelling. All these people are asking is that does the candidate demonstrate ownership, learning, and real-world product sense? If yes, I'll take a call and shortlist them. Because I can teach tools, but I cannot teach clarity, curiosity, or even accountability. So remember this, your resume's job isn't to get you hired. Its job is to get you noticed. It's your 6-second pitch to earn the next 30-minute conversation. And if your resume answers these 4 questions, who are you, what did you achieve, how did you grow, and why are you relevant now, then you're already done what 90% of candidates don't do. And that is how you get shortlisted. What's actually assessed now that you've crossed the first hurdle and your resume has actually landed you that precious shortlist? Let's talk about what happens next. This is where most people start preparing in the wrong direction. They focus on frameworks and don't focus on fundamentals. They memorize answers instead of understanding what interviewers are actually trying to assess. But once you understand how hiring managers think during each stage, you can walk into any interview with calm, confidence, and clarity. Let's break this down stage by stage. Stage 1, the recruiter screening. This is the round people take the most casually and they think, oh, it's just a 10-minute call, what's going to happen in this? And they often lose because of that. Here is the thing, recruiters are not evaluating your deep product thinking, that is true, but that's not a reason for you to calm down. They're actually scanning you for 2 things, fit and focus. Fit means, does your background, title, industry make sense for the role? And focus, can you communicate who you are and what do you want in a role in a clear, crisp, and confident method? You'll often hear this question, walk me through your background, and you will take this as a general get to know. It's not, this is not small talk. This is the test of your positioning. In those first 90 seconds, you need to paint a simple, memorable arc. Who you are, what you've done, where you want to go next. The best candidates sound something like this. I've spent the last 5 years building B2B SaaS products for small businesses, and over time, my focus has shifted from execution to growth strategy. Lately, I've also been using AI tools for my work, which is why this AI PM role feels like a natural next step. Short, clean, purposeful. If you can add a couple of examples to this, even better. By the end of this round, the recruiter should want to recommend you to the hiring manager. The second stage, the product sense or the case interview round. This is where you show how you think. The interviewer is assessing one core thing. Can you take an ambiguous product problem and make sense of it like an owner? They'll usually ask something like, how would you improve YouTube for creators? Or how would you design an AI feature for Slack? What they're really testing isn't your answer, they're actually testing your approach. They're testing, can you clarify the problem before jumping to solutions? The biggest challenge in most PM interviews. Can you identify the right users and their real pain points, which are different from what hundreds of other people can obtain? And then how can you balance user needs, business impact, and technical feasibility? And of course, can you communicate your reasoning clearly as you go? The best candidates never rush to the solution. They slow down rather and show you how they think. They might say, before we jump into ideas, let's define the pointed user segment we are solving for. Because creators could mean influencers, editors, or new YouTubers. And their goals are very, very different. That single sentence tells the hiring manager that you think like a PM. You are able to go down deeper into a user segment and you are structured, empathetic, and grounded in user realities. The product sense round is rarely about being right. It's actually showing the hiring manager how you go ahead and reason or how you go ahead and structure. The next stage typically is the execution or the analytical round, where we move from thinking to doing. The focus here is how you operate in real life, how you make trade-offs, how you prioritize, and how you measure success. You can expect questions like, what metrics would you track for a new onboarding flow? How would you decide between launching feature A versus feature B? What went wrong in your last product launch and how did you fix it? The interviewer here is essentially asking, can you be pragmatic and have you shown proof of that in the past? Do you know when to say no? And do you have a clear sense of what great looks like when it comes to numbers? Strong candidates bring out structure without rigidity. They don't just list frameworks, they actually show judgment. For example, if asked to prioritize features, instead of saying a generic, hey, I'm going to use a RISE framework, a strong candidate will say, I will start by identifying the metric we are trying to move. Then I will map which are the initiatives that will have the biggest impact on this metric relative to effort. RISE, a framework, helps me quantify that, and I'd also factor in strategic context like what the leadership is aligned to do or what their quarterly priorities are. This gives the hiring manager a feel that you've been there, done that. And at this stage, they are actually assessing your ability to drive outcomes under these constraints. The next stage for product interviews is the behavioral or the cross-functional round, where we shift from product thinking to people thinking. This round is about how you work with others, because even the smartest PMs fail if they can't build trust along teams. You can expect questions like, the most common, tell me a time when you disagreed with engineering, or how do you handle feedback? Describe a moment when a launch didn't go as planned. The interviewer is not judging your story. They are judging your self-awareness. They want to see if you actually take ownership, if you have credible stories from your past where you have shown that you are able to reflect and operate with empathy even when under pressure with the team. The best candidates don't blame others, which is a big trait or big no-no for a lot of hiring managers. They actually take the entire thing into context, talk about what they learned, adapted, and how they protected the team's trust. For example, they would go ahead and say openly that they missed a deadline because I overestimated engineering bandwidth. I took accountability, rescoped the feature, and since then I've made the effort to estimate and create a shared ritual within the team. That is golden. It shows maturity, leadership, and emotional intelligence, qualities that actually separate mid level PMs from future leaders. The next stage is the hiring manager or the bar raiser round. Finally, the make or break conversation. At this stage, the interviewer already knows you can do the job. Whether they're testing or is whether you can own the job, you're pretty much sorted, right? This round is about depth, about judgment, and about leadership signal. Expect open-ended questions like, what's your proudest product accomplishment and why? Tell me about a time you had to influence without authority. If you joined us tomorrow, what's the first thing that you would do? They want to see if you can think beyond features, if you can connect product work to business outcomes, and if you have credible stories of your past showcasing this. Essentially, they're asking, do you understand the trade-offs that exist in real-world businesses between user delight and revenue? Can you anticipate the risk before it becomes a problem? Do you understand how businesses make money and where your product fits? This is also the round where communication becomes everything. Even if your answers are strong, how you tell the story decides how credible you sound. Are you concise? Are you structured? Do you reflect confidence without being arrogant? At this level, clarity is leadership. What interviewers are really assessing across all rounds, maybe consciously or subconsciously, is clarity of thought. Can you break all the chaos into clarity? Product intuition. Do you understand what good looks like for the users, what great looks like for the users? Analytical thinking. Can you actually back intuition with data? Collaboration and influence. Can you actually align people without having the reporting authority? Drive and ownership. Do you sound someone who will figure things out even when the path is not clear? That's it. Those are the signals. Every question, every follow-up, every tell me about a time, they're just different ways of testing these 5 things. Here's a tip that works every single time. Do not rush to an answer when faced with a product management interview. Buy yourself 5 seconds. Smile. Reframe the question. For instance, there is an interesting scenario. I'd like to start by clarifying who the target user is. Just this 5 seconds shows that you have the confidence and the structure. When you answer, use short, labeled sections. The problem, my approach, and the outcome. Keep it conversational but tight. And when the interviewer asks if you have questions, always have a question to ask. Never go ahead and say, at this point, I don't have any question. But don't ask the question around what's next in the process. Ask something that shows strategic curiosity. Like, what's the biggest product bet that your team has made this year? What have you learned from that bet? What would you do to make someone truly successful in the role in the 6 months? Good questions that make you memorable. Specific questions that make you memorable. Think of interviews not as a test, but as a collaborative problem-solving session. Your goal is not to impress, it's to connect your thinking with the interviewers. When you walk in with that mindset, your tone changes. You start talking with the interviewer, not at them. And that's what most hiring managers are looking for. Someone who feels like a future teammate, not a nervous candidate. Remember, hiring is not about perfection. It's about fit, trust, and potential. So walk in prepared, but also human. Be thoughtful, be real, and let your clarity do the heavy lifting. Since we are on the topic of what skills and preparation actually make the difference, I just wanted to share something that I've been working on the last 18 months. Like I mentioned earlier, I have interviewed hundreds and thousands of PMs and been the decision maker for many hiring processes. And through that, I have seen what truly helps people break into product management. And spoiler alert, it's not theory, but the kind of preparation that gives you real practical confidence. That is exactly why I have built my AI product management program. It's a 90-day program where I help professionals like you transition into AI first or AI native product roles. We do unlimited mock interviews. Yes, unlimited mock interviews, one-on-one mentoring with me, and live weekend sessions where we go deep into both the fundamentals and the advanced AI concepts. You learn to think like an AI PM, how to design, evaluate, and launch AI-powered products so that you are secure and future ready for this new era. If this sounds interesting, I'm dropping my WhatsApp number in the comments. You can message me directly there and we can talk about whether this program is the right fit for you. Now let's talk about what actually gets you hired. After all the frameworks, all the prep, all these rounds, what actually makes a hiring manager say, yes, let's hire this person is not luck, it's not magic, and it's definitely not tailor-made perfect answers. Over the years, I've interviewed hundreds of PMs. I've realized there are 5 strong signals that almost always separate those who get shortlisted and hired from those who don't. Let's go through them one by one. Signal number 1, ownership mindset. The first thing that every manager looks for is ownership. Not just, I was part of a team and I drove this outcome, etc., etc. Actual specific examples of when you have owned things. When you talk about a project, I listen for pronouns. Do they say we built or I led? Do they hide behind collaboration or take clear responsibilities when asked for? Strong PMs don't wait for permission. They actually identify problems, rally people with them, and move things forward. And if a candidate comes to me in an interview and says that when engineering was short-staffed, I redesigned the release plan and secured extra design support to meet our deadline, that is what is ownership. They did not just describe what happened, they actually added a layer on top of it and described the situation and what they did about it. Ownership gives me the comfort that the person I'm hiring won't get stuck. They'll figure it out. And that's what hiring managers really, really like. Signal number 2, clarity of thinking. The second signal is clarity. Great PMs make complicated things sound extremely simple. When I ask, tell me about your product, I don't want a 5-minute monologue about the architecture, the stakeholders, and so on. I want a crisp, story-like explanation that makes me believe you understand what you built and why it mattered. Something like saying, we noticed that new users were dropping off even before getting activated. I simplified the onboarding flow from 6 steps to 3. These were the steps, this is what we did, these were the numbers, and so on, and the activation improved by 22%. That is clarity. It shows problem, action, outcome, all in the same sentence. If you can communicate like that in an interview, I will instantly know that you will communicate like that at work. The third signal, and probably the most important one, is product intuition and user empathy, or what I like to call it, product instinct with evidence. It's that ability to understand what users need before the data fully tells you. It shows up when someone connects insights to human behavior. For example, if I ask, how would you improve WhatsApp? And the candidate says, hey, I'll add an AI summarizer. That's very surface level and a big red flag. But if the candidate talks to me about the users, talks to me about the users who open group chats to catch up quickly, but scrolling through hundreds of messages creates fatigue, an AI summarizer that highlights the key decisions or actions taken in the group can reduce cognitive overload and help the user. That is real product sense. It's not about just adding AI onto it and saying that this is what I would do. It's actually about understanding who your users are, why they need your solution, and hiring managers love PMs who talk like this. They love PMs who are empathetic, logical, and are very, very hands-on with their user reality. Signal number 4 is to influence without authority. The fourth signal is influence. Every PM knows this. You rarely have direct control. People are not going to report to you, but you are accountable for everything. So in interviews, I pay attention to how candidates talk about conflict. Did they push for alignment or just blame the system? Did they show respect for other functions or just fight for product? The best answers sound collaborative but firm. For example, design wanted to overhaul the UI, engineering wanted to keep the timeline, I reframed the discussion around the core goal, improving NPS. And that helped us prioritize the right set of changes without delaying the project. These kind of things tell hiring managers that you can navigate ambiguity and get buy-in. It's never about being nice. It's actually about being effective. And truthfully, that's one of the hardest skills to teach. Signal number 5, business and execution acumen. The fifth and final signal is your ability to connect product decisions to business outcomes. A lot of PMs stop at the user loved it, but hiring managers don't want this. They want PMs who ask, did it move the metric that matters? What metrics did it even move? If you can talk about how your product improved revenue, retention, efficiency, cost, anything, even at a small scale, you stand out instantly. For example, when someone says, we redesigned the checkout flow and reduced drop-offs by 10%, which translated into $200,000 of additional revenue per quarter, it translates their impact. It tells hiring managers that they are fluent in business. That is the language hiring managers love. When we debrief after interviews, the panel almost never says they didn't know the framework. That's never why they reject people. Why they reject people is that I couldn't see places where they showed ownership. They haven't really shown any clarity. I couldn't connect the dots between what they were saying and what the users wanted. These 5 signals, ownership, clarity, product sense, influence, and business acumen, are what make a hiring manager fight for you in that final discussion. Thanks a lot for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it gave you the clarity on what hiring managers actually look for and what really gets you shortlisted. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'm going to personally go through them and reply to each one of them. And if you are really serious about landing your dream PM or AI PM role and you feel like doing it alone might take it longer or might be unsuccessful or may feel overwhelmed about it, that is exactly where my product management program comes to play. In my AI PM course, you're going to get structured guidance, unlimited mock interviews, and one-on-one mentoring directly from me. So if you want to take the next step in your career, check the link or message me directly on WhatsApp. I would love to help you on your journey. Thanks again and all the best in landing your next product role.